I didn't find out right away. That's the part that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Because while everyone else was sitting down to eat, my 6-year-old daughter was alone in a room she didn't recognize, with the door closed behind her. It was Christmas. My name is Natalie Pierce. I was 34, a logistics coordinator, a single mother, and still clinging to the belief that holidays meant some basic level of decency, even in families that were complicated. We were visiting relatives, the kind of gathering that already felt tense before we arrived. Too many opinions, too many unspoken rules. But I told myself it was worth it for my daughter. She was excited. She'd picked out her dress days earlier, helped me wrap a small gift she was proud of, asked if she could sit next to the grown-up table this year because she was almost 7. When dinner was announced, everyone moved toward the dining room, except her. At first, I assumed she was right behind me. Then I noticed her chair was empty. "Where's Lily?" I asked. My sister didn't look up from setting plates. "She's not joining us." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She's being disciplined," my mother said flatly. "She needs time to think." "About what?" No one answered. I walked down the hallway, my heart already racing. At the end of it was a closed door, locked. I called her name, no answer at first. Then a small voice, muffled through the wood. "Mom!" I tried the handle. It didn't turn. That was the moment everything in me went cold. Because whatever justification they thought they had, whatever excuse they were preparing, none of it mattered anymore. My child was shut away, and I wasn't asking permission to get her back. I didn't knock. I didn't ask. I turned and walked straight back into the dining room. "What is this?" I said, loud enough that every conversation stopped. "Why is my child locked in a room?" My mother sighed like I'd interrupted something trivial. "Lower your voice. It's Christmas." "You locked my 6-year-old in a room," I said again. "Unlock the door, now." "She was disruptive," my sister said. "She needed a timeout." "A timeout?" I repeated. "With the door locked?" No one answered. That was all the answer I needed. I grabbed my phone and said calmly, "If that door isn't unlocked in the next 10 seconds, I'm calling the police." My father laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You're being dramatic." I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm being precise." I started counting. 10. My mother's expression changed. "Natalie, don't do this." 9. "This is family business." 8. My sister stood up. "She's fine." 7. I never raised my voice. I never blinked. Because the moment you hesitate, people like this assume you won't follow through. At 6, the key appeared. My mother stormed past me down the hallway, muttering about embarrassment and overreaction. She unlocked the door and yanked it open. My daughter was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. She stood up the second she saw me. I scooped her into my arms without saying a word. Her face pressed into my shoulder, her body shaking, not crying, just holding on. "I'm here," I said quietly. "You're coming with me." Behind us, the excuses started immediately. She needed consequences. "You're too soft." "We were trying to help." I didn't respond. I carried my daughter to the front door, grabbed our coats, and opened it. "That's it?" my father said. "You're leaving?" "Yes," I said. "And you will never do anything like this to her again." My mother scoffed. "You're overreacting." I turned back one last time. "You locked my child away and denied her food," I said evenly. "You don't get to decide what I call that." Outside, the cold air hit us both. My daughter pulled back just enough to look at me. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said instantly. "You didn't do anything wrong." She nodded, trusting me. That trust was the only thing that mattered. By the time we were in the car, my phone was already buzzing with messages. I didn't look at them, because whatever they were saying now couldn't undo what they'd already shown me. And I knew, with certainty, that this was no longer about one night. This was about safety. We didn't go back, not the next day, not the next week, not after the messages started coming in waves. I took my daughter home, made her something warm to eat, and sat with her until her hands stopped trembling. I stayed close that night, not hovering, just present. The way you are when a child needs to feel the world has snapped back into something predictable. The next morning, she asked, "Are we still family?" "Yes," I said carefully. "But not everyone gets to be close to us." She accepted that without argument. Children understand boundaries more easily than adults do. The fallout arrived fast. My mother accused me of humiliating her. My sister said I'd overstepped. My father warned me not to turn this into something it wasn't. They all spoke as if the real problem was my reaction, not what had been done. That told me exactly how dangerous the situation actually was. Because people who lock a child away and then argue about tone instead of harm are not people you reason with. I changed everything that week. Emergency contacts updated, school permissions revised, no unsupervised access, ever. I didn't announce these decisions. I didn't debate them. I implemented them. When my mother called demanding to see Lily, I said, "That won't be happening," and ended the call. When my sister showed up unannounced, I didn't open the door. They were shocked. I wasn't. One evening while we were eating dinner together, just the two of us, my daughter looked up and said, "I'm glad you didn't leave me there." My chest tightened. "I would never," I said. "Not for anything." She nodded, satisfied, then went back to her food like the matter was settled. And it was. What they called discipline, I recognized as control. What they called tradition, I recognized as permission to harm. And once you see that clearly, there is no version of events where you pretend it didn't happen. They expected time to soften it. Time didn't. It clarified it. By the end of the month, the invitations had stopped. So had the pressure. They realized something fundamental had changed. Not just access to my daughter, but authority over me. They no longer got to decide what was acceptable. And that loss of control bothered them far more than losing us. I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady. Because the moment I opened that locked door, I understood something with absolute clarity. Anyone willing to isolate a child to preserve order is not someone you negotiate with. They are someone you leave behind. The apology never came. There were messages later, cautious, indirect, carefully phrased to avoid responsibility. My mother said she felt attacked. My sister said I'd misunderstood the situation. Someone suggested we all needed time to cool off. Not one of them asked how my daughter was sleeping. Not one of them asked if she was eating. That silence answered every question I still had. For a while, things were quieter than I expected. No surprise visits, no holiday follow-ups, no attempts to smooth things over. It wasn't peace, it was distance. And for the first time, distance felt like safety. My daughter adjusted faster than I did. Children don't cling to people who scare them. They cling to consistency. Once she realized she wasn't going back there, her shoulders relaxed. Her questions stopped circling the same night over and over. One afternoon, weeks later, she asked, "Can someone lock me in a room again?" "No," I said immediately. "Never." She nodded, satisfied. "Okay." That was all she needed. We rebuilt Christmas in our own way. Pancakes for dinner, movies on the couch, a tree that leaned slightly to one side because we decorated it too fast. No rules that required silence, no punishments disguised as lessons. Just warmth, just presence. I used to believe that being a good daughter meant tolerating things I didn't agree with. I don't believe that anymore. Now I believe being a good parent means interrupting harm. Even when it comes wrapped in tradition, authority, or family loyalty. Especially then. My family locked my 6-year-old daughter away and denied her a seat at the table. They thought it was discipline. What it really was a test. A test of whether I would stay quiet to keep the peace. I didn't. I chose my child. I chose the door that opened, not the one that locked. And because of that choice, my daughter learned something far more important than obedience. She learned that when the world tries to tell her she doesn't belong, someone will always come for her. That someone is me, and that will never change.